That was then Attorney General Mark Brnovich speaking on 60 Minutes just 9 days before the 2022 midterm elections. It was the very first time the state's top law enforcement officer had publicly dismissed election fraud claims by fellow Republicans, let alone describe them as horse blank. We've now learned that Brnovich was told months before by his own investigators that the vast majority of the claims were horse blank. But Brnovich never told us. What was Mark Brnovich thinking? What was the cost of his silence? And what comes next? Our political insiders join us now, both attorneys. Republican Christine Jones, former candidate for Arizona governor, and Democrat Chris Love, board member at Planned Parenthood Action. Welcome back to Square Off.
Good morning.
Before we get going, I want to give full credit to the Washington Post, which was first to report on what Brnovich's investigators told him. That was based on a public records request from Brnovich's successor, Democrat Chris Mays. So many questions. I want to start with a big one because I think it's important to get this across. What was the cost of Brnovich's silence, the human impact of letting these election fraud claims linger, persist for months? Christine?
Well, it runs the spectrum, right? You could say it's anything from nothing to death threats. And people who were living in fear, and our county elected officials wondering if somebody was going to be standing outside their door when they left to go to work in the morning. The human cost was significant. And unfortunately, then Attorney General Brnovich decided that that was worth it to help advance maybe his career or his power or his standing in the party to help a Republican get elected. Not really sure, but it was significant, Bram, and I'm embarrassed as a Republican to be taking that side because it's unfortunate that this happened.
Embarrassed, really?
It's really embarrassing because if you know something, particularly as an attorney, you have an ethical obligation to disclose and you don't do it. It's not just a bar complaint, right? It's not just a violation of the ethical rules. I think there's a moral issue there. And, you know, public officials are held to a higher standard. So to me, as a person who's kind of a nerdy rule follower, it's embarrassing.
Also, the loss of trust in the election itself and the whole process. And in a strange way, I wonder what you think about this, Republicans animated by these election fraud claims, animated by Donald Trump repeating the lies, it cost them the election, didn't it?
Absolutely. I think that you've seen that middle-of-the-road Republicans were done with this narrative about 2020. But also, I think that these lies that were perpetuated by folks, the big lie, impacted the number of Republicans that actually showed up on Election Day because they lost trust in our election system.
Yeah. So I haven't been able to reach Brnovich for comment. In statements to other media outlets, he defended his record on election-related matters, but hasn't explained why he never disclosed his investigators' findings. Christine, you kind of touched on this. Was this just a political decision on his part because he was running for the U.S. Senate?
It sure feels like it. I mean, again, a spectrum, right? You could say there was ongoing questions because some of the investigations didn't get to bedrock, right? They didn't get to an actual outcome. But we now know of the over 600 complaints, you know, they investigated 422 were sent down for criminal charges. So you had to know something. You had to know some answer. So the only conclusion we can come to, unless and until Mark Brnovich comes out and disabuses us of the notion, is he was playing a political game.
Now the question that's disturbed many lawyers, you touched on it. As an officer of the court, Mark Brnovich was bound by a code of professional conduct. Wasn't he to disclose what he knew? Or because he's a politician, does he get a pass?
Oh, absolutely not. He's a politician, but he is still a lawyer first and, you know, basically our chief lawyer for the state. And if he had been paying as much attention to his ethical duties as he was to making nunchuck videos, we would be having a really different conversation, possibly without 2 now bar charges and maybe more to come.
Is his bar license in jeopardy, do you think?
I think as attorneys, we have to be very careful about making a conclusion on that because there is a process and the complaint gets made. There's a committee from the bar that does the investigation. So I'm not going to go as far as Adrian Fontes and say, yes, disbar him. It's all over. But it is appropriate to be reported. There's an ethical rule that says you can't be dishonest, you can't engage in fraud, and if you do, you're subject to discipline up to and including disbarment. So it'll be interesting to see how the bar proceeds with this. And, you know, we now know based on the Andy Thomas stuff and the Sheriff Joe stuff that they are inclined to take away cards from people who are public officials if they misbehave badly enough.
Okay, got to end it there. When we